here in Detroit?
Strange, obviously, being in the visitors' locker room, but obviously a lot of incredible memories.
Will it be difficult tonight when you see the introductions and you go into the room and you're not necessarily in that same role?
Yeah, probably. It's going to be different. I mean, it's going to be strange. I'm glad, obviously, I saw lots of the Red Wings in Edmonton 10 days ago. But certainly it will be a strange night for me.
Does it help? Sorry. Does it help if you guys came in here with 2 wins? It might be different, but you come in here and you got a reason to puff your chest out a little bit. Does that help at all?
First off, I've been in the game a long time. I don't puff it out very long because the league has a way of pushing the puff back. But on one hand, certainly, we're very happy that we're out of the gate with our record. But it's a small sample size. There's 70 more games to go, it's a marathon. Over the course of 6 months. So I can't remember the other part, but I'm certainly happy we're certainly happy where we're at. But it's a marathon, and long way to go.
I know it's not the building where you had all your success, but when you come back to the city, is there a memory of your time here that kind of hits you right away? What stands out the most?
Well, I think it's a ton of memories. It was a long time. I mean, I moved here in 1994. I lived in Detroit for 25 years. So it's a lot of great, incredible. I guess my memories would be about the people I worked with on the ice and off the ice, and the fans. The passion of the fan base. It's an incredible fan base.
How closely have you watched this group from a distance, especially the guys you drafted that have spoken so highly of you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've watched them play a little bit. Lots of nights when they're playing, we're playing. Seen highlights, seen the statistics. I mean, I follow the league, so I'm following them. Obviously, a lot of them I shook their hand at the draft table to welcome them to the Red Wing organization, and I've watched them grow up to become NHL players. And there's, and then obviously, the coaching staff I've worked with, and Steve Yzerman, we go back to 1983 together. So, obviously it's 36 years of my life. I'm 63. It's 36 years of my life. I was a Red Wing, and 25 years of my life I lived in Detroit. So, we got lots of great friends and family, and that 3 of our kids went to Michigan State University for university. So Detroit was a big part of our family's life.
Hey Ken, when Steve took over and then you got promoted, how much of a no-brainer was it to take the Edmonton job when they came a calling? Was there emotion saying to yourself, well, maybe I should stay here? I know you probably thought you had a lot.
Well, there's always emotions. Yeah. I think we eventually have to make decisions taking the emotion out. But I would say to you, first off, I'm forever grateful to Chris Ilitch and to Miss Ilitch and to Steve Yzerman for all, for them offering me a contract and for asking me to continue to be a part of the organization in a secondary and advisor role. And after that press conference, Steve and I and Chris Draper and Tyler Wright and a few of the scouts went over to the World Under-18s at Sweden, and watching those games, decisions were going to come at the draft. I knew that those decisions were going to be made by Steve and other people, and the juices were flowing. And then I think that when Bob Nicholson reached out, it's an opportunity to continue to be a manager in the league, and also, to work with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Daryl Cates, a great owner, Bob Nicholson, who I know well from Hockey Canada days, and then an opportunity just to be a general manager. There's only 31 general managers in the National Hockey League. To be a general manager in the National Hockey League is I feel very, very fortunate. And after going through an internal process, talking to my wife, felt that I was excited about this opportunity in Edmonton and looking forward to the challenge and see if I can come to Edmonton and make a bit of a difference.
You mentioned McDavid. You saw Larkin here for a number of years. How do those two players compare, and how can, in your opinion, maybe Larkin bring his game to that
Well,
next step?
first off, with all due respect to any young players, Connor McDavid is in his own league.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's going to be one of the, when his career's over, he's going to be one of the greatest players, has the potential to be one of the greatest players this league has ever known. I mean, he's 22, and I think he got one or two league scoring champions and an MVP. I mean, he's 22 years old. So I don't compare any young player to Connor McDavid personally.
Did that help? Obviously, swing the job for you, knowing you had a player like that to build around.
Well, for sure. I mean, you know, the game is played on the ice. The players decide the game, and certainly to have Leon Draisaitl had 50 goals and 105 points last year. He's the first player in 6 years to get 50 goals and 100 points in the same season. When you think of all the great players in this league the last 6 years, and he just turned 24 on Sunday. So you know, his accomplishments are pretty special too. So certainly those two players obviously had impacted my thought process.
I don't know if this is appropriate. Real quick, would you tickle us or just enlighten us? It's all water under the bridge now. Were there any trades that were close over the years? Now that you're the Oilers GM, any guys you were close to signing? Any stories that you would want to share?
No. Maybe one day I'll write a book.
Again, you talked about how long you were here, 36 years, and all the great stuff you did in the Cups. How difficult was the last 4 or 5 years here, and was it kind of disappointing that you had so much success and you were so great, but some of the fans were just kind of ready to kind of see you go?
Well, that's sports, I respect the passion. That's what makes these franchises great, is that the fan base really cares and they live and die with your team. And I would say for you that we had made the playoffs 25 years in a row, and the first year we missed. It's the first year you missed. I'd say for me personally, the last couple of years, I felt the fans' frustration, and certainly our expectations in making decisions. My expectations in making the decisions were to try to put a better team on the ice. But I think when you've been in the playoffs 25 years in a row, when you look around the league, I think Pittsburgh's made it 14 years in a row, and I think the second longest streak is like 5 or 6 years. This is a hard league to make the playoffs consistently, and those teams are probably veteran teams, and they're you think about the Red Wings in 13, 14, 15, 16. In 13, we went to Game 7 in overtime against Chicago in round 2. 15, we were Game 7 with Tampa Bay. So I think that the last 2 or 3 years were tough for the fans, and I feel their frustration. But every franchise seems to go through a rebuilding. I think in a salary cap world, that's just sort of, you look around the league, and teams that were once great teams in this league are in rebuild modes, and that's just the nature of a salary cap world.
So is it fair to say that it was kind of time for kind of everything to change, right? I mean, maybe you'd still like to be here in Detroit, but is it fair to say with what you went through, with you talk about the fans, what they went through, I mean, it's almost like everybody's better off. Is that fair, or?
That's, that's for somebody else to decide. At the end of the day, I only can decide what I decide, and I just I try to go to work every day, and I think most people do, and you give everything you got for that day, and then you go to bed and you wake up and you do it again the next day. That's what I tried to do in all my time in Detroit, and certainly I made a decision near the end. The last couple of years, it was time for a rebuild. I feel good about lots of the young players in Detroit. I felt good that there was lots of draft picks. I felt good that the salary cap, the money was starting to free up, and there's lots of salary cap space. But the reality is, I don't care what market you're in, rebuilds take time, rebuilds take patience, and it's hard on a fan base. It's tough. But They've got a great manager here in Steve Yzerman. I hold him in the highest regard as a person, as a player, and as a general manager. I feel really good about my time in Detroit. I feel, I wish we could have gone to 28 years and 29 years, and then somebody tells me today that maybe you should have started a rebuild mode earlier. Well, I think at the end of the day, the reality is the rebuilds are painful, and pretty well every franchise in the league is at some point in time going to have to go through a rebuild. That's the reality of a cap world.
I know it's like picking your favorite kid, but which cup was the most satisfying for you here?
They're all satisfying. They're all satisfying. I mean, obviously, '97 was the first in 42 years. '98, you think about the accident, the car accident, and '02 was lots of Hall of Famers, and '08 was in a salary cap world. When in 2005, as he's asking me here, the sky was falling in 2005, and in '07 we went to the Final Four. In '08 we won the Cup. In '09 we went to Game 7 of the Finals. So they were all special. They're so hard to win. They are so hard to win. You got to be great. You got to be lucky. You got to be fortunate. You need everything to fall into place. They're all special just because they're so hard to win. Thanks.
Thanks so much.